time and try things out. Here in Vampyr, you're given time to investigate, to contemplate what you're about to do, but all the tough decisions are final.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really excites me about this game is, you know, you're a vampire, and obviously you have to make the decision whether to feed, but also, you know, the doctor in you, that kind of Hippocratic oath, is going against, you know, your will.
Completely.
Yeah. Who you are as a doctor and a vampire is really at the core of the gameplay experience, both in the combat and in the narrative aspect as well. Because Jonathan sees vampirism as a disease, and as a doctor, he wants to cure that disease. But in order to survive as a vampire, you have to feed. So he wants to save humanity, but at the same time, he is the enemy of humanity.
And I imagine that core dilemma is going to be propelling you to making some really tough decisions, and I think every decision you make in the game is going to have an effect.
Exactly. So one of the core mechanics is the investigative part of the game is you trying to figure out, okay, so I have to feed in order to survive, but who do I feed on? So there's no good situation here. You basically have to try and figure out what is the worst thing that could happen if I feed on this guy or on this guy, and what will the effect of that be? Because feeding on someone will have an effect. It doesn't matter who you feed on in the game, it will have a knock-on effect that you'll see in the game.
Is this going to be an episodic game as well?
No, this is a full release and a full physical release, actually.
I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and the setting is very compelling. You know, the influenza, the Spanish flu, you know, it's something people can really identify with. And how much does that play into the story itself in the game?
Well, actually, the setting is very important to the game. It came quite early when we decided to do a game about vampires, and with the first draft of the stories and the kind of situation we wanted to put in. This is the only place in time that made sense for us because of the war, the Spanish flu, but also all the medical advances that have been made in the previous decades. You'll see why during the game, but they are very important.
I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous looking at the footage here. And obviously, I imagine, you know, as you're a vampire, you're not just going to have your free run to go and, you know, get blood from people. I'm sure there's some people, some antagonists out to get you.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's where the combat comes in. So as a vampire, you are hunted by various people. There are vampire hunters. But the idea of vampires at the start of the game isn't necessarily well known to everyone, but the decisions you make will make London become more and more infested if you decide to kill. There's this really interesting sort of meta balance there in the game where if you kill everyone, if you kill as many people as possible, then the city will become more overrun by these monsters and creatures. But if you don't, you'll be less experienced. So this ties into the combat. The narrative and the combat are really tied together. This is a really important thing for us because obviously Dotnod are known for, you know, narrative aspect. So the narrative aspect had to tie into the combat. So in the combat, when you level up by getting blood, but you don't want to kill people because you're a doctor, so you want to kill as least people as possible. So the more you kill, the more powerful you'll become, but the more London will go downhill.
And the more you're going against your, you know, your natural doctor instinct. So it's that kind of, you know, compelling kind of, what do I do? What is the right decision? The shades of grey between right and wrong.
Precisely. Yeah, that's such a great part about these games is that, like, a lot of these, you know, choose your own adventure games, it's obvious that there's a right answer and a wrong answer. But in this, there isn't really a right or wrong. It's how you want to play it, right?
Yeah.
It's all grey. And I'd like to add that if at first it might be your inclination to try to mitigate the damage, you can also fully embrace your vampiric nature and even use your doctor skill to, I don't know, nurse people back to health and just.
So you don't have to kill them once you feed?
No.
Okay.
Come again.
Oh, so like if you feed on them, does it kill them like automatically?
Yes, no,
okay.
It kills them, but if someone is healed, the blood that you draw from him, it will not be as high quality as someone who is in good shape. And as a doctor, you can nurse people back to health and just be really evil about it.
So it's one of the really interesting things because you could have a guy with a son who has the healthiest blood and you're going to get a lot of XP, a lot of power from that. But then you could have a guy who you know from the investigative part that he's a real bad guy and he's the one you should kill. But you're not going to get as much bonus from feeding from this guy. So there's going to be a knock-on effect on everything you do and it'll really push you in a direction of play that suits you.
That's a super interesting mechanic because, you know, in most games, you know, you kill someone, it's just a stat. Oh, another person, oh wait. Every single kill, every single decision you make, you've got to consider and you've got to think about the possible repercussions.
You don't have to.
You don't have to, but you should, yes.
Yeah, you should.
And there's no free kill, really. I mean, even a bad guy, he can be doing some things in a community that are important to that community, and that are things that you discover only too late if you didn't investigate properly before.
So is the game's combat based off of like stealth, like sneaking behind people and capturing them, or do you actually use weapons and like attack?
You use weapons. There are no stealth element to the gameplay. You use a variety of weapons, and they are kind of a support. They have a support role to all the vampiric powers.
Okay.
Yeah, the current thing with the combat is that you start very human, so you're in a fight, you start very human, you're very controlled, but you feed from people in combat, so you have to break them down, feed them, and with that energy you'll be able to use more and more of these vampiric powers. Now in the demo you've seen some of the vampiric powers, in fact he's feeding right now, this is one of the combat situations. It's very, very much work in progress, the combat right now, but the general idea is you start controlled as Jonathan, and you end with these epic vampiric powers, and then you come back, you know, as Jonathan the human.
Is he the standard cliche vampire where he can't go into the sun, his stake through the heart is how you kill him, garlic, all that kind of stuff?
Well, we kind of pick and choose from all the laws that you can find from the vampiric mythos.
We pick the cool stuff and we drop
cool stuff,
the
and what was
stuff.
We felt will lend itself to interesting gameplay bits. So yes, for instance, Jonathan Reed cannot enter into someone's house if he's not invited, but you're a doctor in a time where they tend to be trusted and all powerful, so it's easy to get someone's trust.
But he can only do night calls.
I don't know.
Oh, all right.
Oh, and also with the Spanish flu, I guess, you know, people need the doctor, so that's going to, you know, and I think the setting is one of the things that excites me most about the game. It's such a, you know, deliberate kind of a remarkable time of history, and, you know, a lot of people, how much research did you go into, you know, getting that right?
I mean, that's a question for Stefan, but maybe you can talk for him.
We studied London to get the architecture right. We wanted to get the feel of London right. We took some liberties because it's not about being a one-to-one scale replica. We studied all the medical advances and discovery of that time. That was really important to our story, and also the context, the mindset, the way that at that time we're past the turn of the century. The Industrial Revolution is kind of gone, and people have lost their illusion and hope about it that could solve every mankind's problem. Actually, it brought some problem of its own, like what you found in the First World War, terrible invention like the mustard gas and all the weaponry. So people are disenchanted, disillusioned, and that's a perfect time for a vampire society to strike.
So you interact with a lot of other vampires in the game?
You will meet your peers, yes.
And are you seen as a bad guy for the vampires because you're trying to help people, maybe, or is that something that happens depending on your choices in the game?
Come again?
You know, are your choices in the game going to affect the way other vampires see you?
Oh yeah, they definitely will have different stances depending on how you choose to embrace your vampiric nature. Some are just like you, at first at least, trying to stay human as much as possible, but others revel in the carnage they can do.
Yeah, it's important to remember that Jonathan's kind of a fledgling vampire, so he's really, a lot of the game is coming to terms and learning about how big this vampiric lineage is and figuring out where it came from, because he needs to find the source to.
You're learning together, the game together, right?
Exactly.
He just turned into a vampire, technically you just turned into a vampire.
Exactly. Learning what he's capable of, both as a human and a vampire.
And I guess that's going to be a compelling part of the journey, is, you know, finding out about Jonathan himself rather than just the flu and all the things that are going on. It's his personal story.
It certainly starts with a strong part of his personal story,
yes.
Yeah, in terms of what he can do and to whom.
And at first, you know, he's a scientist, so he tries to tackle this with a rational approach, and he will try to cure it like just any other disease, but he will meet some people who will prove that it's more than that.
So what are we looking at right here? He was going through an icon of a bunch of different faces.
Well, that's kind of a special vampire sense where you kind of have a sonar for the thing that you need the most. You feel the blood into people, and you kind of get a sense of how ill-see and how powerful the blood of everyone around you is. So you can navigate the area and find your victims and trying to get the most bang for your buck.
So where can people get this game and when can they expect it?
It's going to be released sometime in 2017. And it's going to be out from PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Oh, fantastic. And is there a website that people can go to find out more information?
Yeah, it should be vampyregame.com.
Oh, well, simple enough. All right, guys.